South Africa started on the digital migration journey around 2012, with the initial analog switch-off date set for 2013. Our country embarked on this journey following the International Telecommunications Union resolution that countries in Region 1, including Europe, Russia, Africa, the Middle East, and the Islamic Republic of Iran, should migrate their broadcasting services from analog broadcasting technology to digital technologies. The primary objective of digital migration is to clear the radio frequency spectrum currently occupied by broadcasters to enable the provision of wireless mobile broadband services and other innovative applications. So why is migration necessary in the first place? Well, the analog television signal is an inefficient technology from the 1940s. All analog radio and TV frequencies use up a lot of space on the spectrum, and unfortunately, spectrum is a limited and finite resource. To free up spectrum, the ITU recommended DTT, Digital Terrestrial Television. DTT and other digital technologies allow for more information to be transmitted using the same amount of space. For example, instead of having one channel on analog, you can get 12 to 14 different channels with the same spectrum space with DTT. Part of the big dream around DTT was also reflected in the South African government's broadcasting digital migration policies. These policies proposed more public service channels for youth and women, education and e-government services, access to basic internet services and digital information, and access to free-to-air television channels, all to be accessed through the Electronic Programming Guide, the EPG. This would have been a massive benefit for those whose access was formerly limited by distance, physical challenges, and costs. So what happened in South Africa after the ITU dates were set? Well, we spoke to the chairperson of SOS, Thandi Smith, to find out more.
Well, the digital migration process was delayed by various factors, including poorly thought out policies, legal battles, and bad decisions made along the way, either due to incompetence or possibly corruption. The process was also poorly planned and not implemented. The original date that DTT was supposed to be switched on in South Africa was 2013. It is now 2019. The first problem was around existing technology that would limit universal access once migration was complete. New televisions are likely to be able to receive DTT signals. However, old televisions can only receive analog signals and are not capable of converting digital signals. Some kind of electronics was needed, an aerial to receive the signal and a box to translate it from analog to digital. Very much the same way a DSTV decoder can decode a digital satellite signal, you need a DTT decoder to decode a digital signal that comes in. The country required STBs, set-top boxes. However, agreements on the manufacturing and other technical standards for these boxes could not be reached. Certain parties wanted encrypted boxes and conditional access, while others preferred open boxes with no encryption. A slew of court cases ensued around encryption, but also around the former minister's changing of South Africa's broadcast digital migration policies. It later emerged that there may have been undue interference in these policy changes exerted by external corporate and other interests. These issues are now before the Zondo Commission. Additionally, it didn't help to have two separate ministers and different departments, both trying to deal with DTT rollout in the country. The DOC, the Department of Communications, also had its own leadership crisis and ended up with over 7 ministers in less than 10 years. The DTPS, the Department of Telecommunications and Postal Services, also had its own legal battles as the then minister sought to map out the country's valuable spectrum post-migration.
How did all this policy and legal wrangling affect the public and the public purse? Let's hear from Koketso Moeti, Director of Amandla.mobi.
Well, there was a big concern that people would have to buy the set-top boxes. Government recognized that communication is a basic human right and offered to provide subsidies for people who could not afford a box. The government used the Universal Services and Access Agency of South Africa to procure the boxes and distribute them. 3 manufacturers were appointed to produce 1.5 million boxes. By 2016, following pressure from civil society organizations like SOS, Right to Know, and Amandla.mobi, among others, government agreed to subsidize 5 million boxes. The goal being that every household that earns under 3,200 a month would receive a free set-top box and continue to have access to free television services. If it had been done right and completed in 2013, DTT would have been fantastic. A clean operation where the poorest amongst us receive government-subsidized set-top boxes. To date, government has spent 1 billion rand for only 1.5 million decoders, costing approximately 660 per installation. And it cost the Department of Communications 10 billion rand, and many households are still at risk of being cut off from free television. Today, many agree that the set-top box is now a long-mooted device, even though it was the ideal device to let people with old analog television sets pick up signals from new digital technology. Nevertheless, rollout and migration must happen.
Thandi also explained how the DTT process will unfold.
Cabinet has approved a revised delivery model on implementation of the Broadcast Digital Migration Project. Presently, South Africa is in a dual illumination period that started on the 1st of February in 2016. Dual illumination is a period in broadcasting digital migration when both the analog and the digital signal is transmitted at the same time. Cabinet's model adopts a market retail-driven approach through collaboration and partnerships with the private sector and industry. Government will no longer be involved in the procurement of set-top boxes, warehousing, transportation, and the installation of devices. This approach opens up a chance for possible retail and voucher systems, the skilling of young people to install them, and reduces government exposure to risk. However, the accelerated intervention to remove government from the procurement and installation process could cost another 2 billion rand. This is less than the initially estimated 7 billion rand.
So what we all want to know now is, what will happen to the old set-top boxes that have already been manufactured and are sitting in warehouses?
Set-top boxes, which are still warehoused, will be delivered to homes based on databases of where they are most needed, where people could never afford to organize their own digital migration. They will start in the Free State, then move to the Northern Cape, Northwest, and far-flung areas near South Africa's borders with other countries. Bilateral engagements have been concluded with 6 neighboring countries, namely Botswana, Zimbabwe, Namibia, Mozambique, Lesotho, and Swaziland, in order to minimize cross-border radio frequency spectrum interference.
What is also important to know is what happens after digital migration and what the digital dividend means.
The main reason for digital migration is to release valuable spectrum, which can be used efficiently for other telecommunications and broadcasting services. The digital dividend is the amount of spectrum which is freed up for other things. Mobile phone operators desperately need more spectrum. Higher frequency signals do not travel very far because they get blocked by buildings easily. Low frequency signals travel further and they go through buildings more easily, very well suited for mobile phones. Also, the frequencies that television operates in are very good for different types of communication, especially rural communication, because these signals travel a long way and penetrate very far. There's a big drive throughout the world to move away from analog to digital for access to these frequencies. Failing to meet multiple deadlines to switch off the analog terrestrial TV signals means that South Africa is no longer protected against disruptions of radio waves that are used for analog television broadcasts.
Thank you, Thandi and Koketso, for your valuable input. In conclusion, the people of South Africa are still unable to reap the many benefits of digital migration. While the rollout continues at a snail's pace, the rest of the world is moving on, to more efficient digital broadcasting and ICT technologies. And South Africa is getting left further and further behind, unable to fully embrace the potential of the fourth industrial revolution.